If you deal with a forward head or text neck or any other form of cervical posture dysfunction, then doing conventional neck retraction exercises like this are probably one of the worst things that you can do. In order to get the fully intended benefit of these exercises, you'll need to do a lot more than just look at your neck. The truth is, you can do cervical retraction exercises all day long, all you want. But until you improve the relationship between how your head, shoulders, and rib cage work alongside one another, you'll forever struggle to make lasting changes. Look at these two variations as an example. In the first one, you can see the base is from a compressed or overly rounded position, while the second is from a more supported and upright position. These small changes can have a massive influence on the starting position of your neck, and as a result of that, on the effectiveness of the exercises. If you've struggled with tension headaches, neck pain, or this forward head posture, this video is going to be a masterclass for you in terms of understanding what all goes into getting your head into a more neutral position, as well as how to get down to the root cause so that you don't find yourself continuously coming back to this position. Let's jump into it. So one of the first things that we need to discuss as it relates to your head position and bringing your head into a more neutral position isn't going to be just focusing on the neck, but actually bringing some awareness to your tongue position. Now, there is a ton of different information out there as it relates to your tongue positioning, the breath protocol that all goes into that. You can look into the work of James Nestor, Patrick McCowan, Mewing. The idea here is we're gonna take all of those principles collectively and we're gonna try to apply it to how we create proper tongue posture. The reason why we are starting here is because the influence or position of your tongue is gonna play a role in your jaw and face positioning, and as a result, us potentially getting out of this excessive compressatory tendency that we might have in through our head, as well as allowing us to get into a more supported and upright position. So the easiest way that I understand this, in terms of getting your tongue position set, is to first make the letter N. Wherever your tongue goes when you make the letter N is roughly where the tip of your tongue should go. Now, a lot of people, when they start to look at mewing, they'll think about doing something called a tongue push-up. So they'll actually take the back third of their tongue and they'll try to actively press it towards the roof of their mouth. Now, that's not entirely a bad thing, and you can start to develop just some sensation around that position doing it that way. But instead of forcefully pushing the tongue to the roof of the mouth, what we're gonna attempt to do is create some suction. So instead of us creating an active pressure going up, we're gonna try to almost create a miniature vacuum inside our mouth. And how we're gonna do that is by doing a slight swallow. So you're gonna start with the letter N. That's gonna take the tongue to the tip of just really the backside of your teeth. You're gonna close your mouth so your teeth are almost touching. And then you're gonna do a slight swallow. And as you do the swallow, you'll feel your tongue just kind of get sucked up to the roof of your mouth. And now you're just gonna try to maintain that position. And once you have that tongue posture set, something that I would recommend is just play with some different positions of your head while you maintain that tongue position. So maybe take the chin up, maybe take it to the side, drop the head down, maybe do some circles. The idea here is just to kind of explore some different ranges of motion while you keep that suction of the tongue to the roof of the mouth. So for this next exercise, we're gonna come down to the floor and we're gonna start to learn how to keep our airway long, because this is where a lot of those conventional approaches of neck retractions kind of go wrong. They kind of close off the airway by giving yourself this double chin in an attempt to get the deep neck flexors to be active. Now, we can get the deep neck flexors to be active while keeping this long and not actually closing everything off. So we're gonna grab a yoga block and we're gonna come onto our back, just like so. Now, what we're gonna do here to start is just get used to keeping some space really between where our collarbones and the base of our jaw is. So we wanna get out of this tendency to really close off or go into an excessive extension of the cervical spine. We're just gonna get an idea as to what neutral feels like in this position. So what I would suggest here to start with is just getting your tongue positioning set. You can think about almost projecting or bringing the jaw forward slightly here. And then once we have the tongue position, we have the jaw set, we have some level of space or length between where our collarbones and jaw are. What we're gonna do ever so slowly is take your hands to the back of your head and we're gonna lift our head off the block here just a couple inches. And to start with, you can just support your head. You can do it with one hand or both hands. And we're just gonna think about that same principle of keeping this open and long. And then when you're ready, slowly start to ease pressure off your hands, or you can use the hands as needed here. If that's too much for you, then you can use the hands to hold that position. And the idea here is we're trying to get out of this reflex of closing things off here or going back into excessive extension of the cervical spine. We're trying to keep this ideally long while we start to feel activation come into these deep neck flexors. Then once we kind of have some sensation coming into that area, what we're gonna do is ever so gently just start to bring our head back onto the block. The intention here is over time, I should be able to take the block out of the equation, get myself more or less set in terms of my head position. I feel the activation come here, and we're gonna try to maintain some of that feedback as we're slowly bringing our head back more or less on top of our shoulders without closing the airway off too much. I would suggest working through this for anywhere between about 3 to 5 reps and focus on tempo here. I think you're gonna do a brief hold at the top, and then you're gonna come down towards the block or towards the ground over about a 5 to 8 second window. So now that we have an idea as to how to create some suction through the tongue, we got our tongue posture on point, we have an idea as how to create more length through the airway and what it feels like to have some activation around the face and jaw to support the head, we're gonna start to link this to our shoulders and rib cage. So what you're gonna wanna do for this one is just come onto a chair, much like I'm in here. You're gonna come to the edge of it, and you're gonna take your arms slightly behind you. Now the reason why we're taking our arms behind us is because chances are, if I'm in a more forward-oriented position with my head, then my sternum is likely to follow that pattern. So my sternum is probably more in a compressed position. So what we're gonna attempt to do here is first get our sternum up. We're gonna think about projecting the sternum slightly forward without overcompensating through our lumbar. And then we're gonna start to get our tongue positioning set while we're here. Now, once we have our tongue posture set, we have the sternum slightly projected forward. What we're gonna start to do is think that we're closing the gap between where our sternum and the base of our chin is. So I'm not gonna be doing a cervical retraction here where I'm closing the airway off and I'm giving myself this excess of double chin. Instead, we're gonna think about pulling the sternum just gently up to the base of the chin, and you're gonna feel some activation come into the posterior side of the neck as you do that. What might help you here is to also incorporate a slight push of the knuckles down into your chair so we can get a little bit of tricep feedback to start to project the sternum forward. I'm keeping the face, the jaw, and my head relatively long. And what I'm attempting to do is take the backside tissues here, and I'm thinking about lifting them up without dropping my chin down. So the backside of my head is getting pulled up while the front of my face is getting pulled forward. And then all we're gonna work is just an isometric hold here for about 45 to 90 seconds, just being mindful of the different cues between where the T-spine, the tongue, and all those different positions of the shoulders, rib cage, and head are in space relative to one another. So as you can see, when it comes to addressing your forward head posture, your text neck, there's a lot more to it than simply just doing these cervical or neck retractions. We want to be mindful of things like, where is our rib cage in space? Do we have some idea of thoracic extension? Is our airway staying open and long, or are we suffocating ourselves? What about the tongue position? I hope throughout this video you learned a few things as it relates to that relationship between the rib cage, the shoulders, the head, the tongue positioning, and then you can walk away with a little bit more of a supported and upright head position. If you want to learn more about this practice and looking at the body really in a more integrated and holistic way, then you can go watch another video I did on the body in some way right here.